Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving straight into what we call the workflow-first blueprint for scaling generative and agentic AI in the enterprise. Look, right now there is this massive disconnect, right? Billions of dollars are pouring into AI, but the actual impact on the bottom line, it's just not there. So we're going to figure out exactly why that's happening and how the absolute smartest companies out there are totally rethinking their approach to automation. Let's kick things off with a massive reality check from MIT Nanda. 95%, that is the number of AI pilots that are currently failing to deliver real value. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Out of every 100 enterprise AI initiatives, 95 of them are getting completely stuck in what we call pilot purgatory. They work beautifully in a controlled sandbox, but the second they hit real-world workflows, they just completely fall apart. So, why exactly is this happening? And honestly, the future doesn't look much brighter if we stay on this exact same path. Gartner is actually predicting that over 40% of agentic AI projects will just be completely abandoned by 2027. Why? Because way too many companies are essentially just buying AI subscriptions instead of actually designing a real AI strategy. They're engaging in what's essentially AI theater, automating the symptoms instead of fundamentally getting in there and redesigning the root business processes. The absolutely crucial point here is understanding what you should actually automate. Because taking premium, expensive large language models and using them to solve simple problems that your standard deterministic code could handle, that is an incredibly expensive mistake. Think about it. You've got deterministic software on one side, it's rules-based, it's consistent, and it's dirt cheap to run. Then on the other side, you have probabilistic AI. It's context-aware, it's highly adaptive, but you are paying a variable cost for every single token. The real mining architectural choice? Use generative AI as this dynamic, flexible interface, but keep that rock-solid deterministic code as the spine of your operation. Section 1. The Klarna Reality Check. Volume versus value. Let's get into it. To really see how this plays out in the real world, let's look at one of the most famous AI deployments out there right now, the Klarna case study. Back in February 2024, Klarna was making massive headlines with this new OpenAI-powered customer service assistant. And this system, it successfully absorbed the high-volume, low-empathy tier of consumer support. The numbers they reported were absolutely staggering. It handled 2.3 million conversations in just its first month alone. That's effectively replacing the workload of 700 full-time agents. It dropped resolution times from 11 minutes all the way down to just 2 minutes, driving a projected $40 million profit improvement. I mean, on paper, it looked like the ultimate AI victory, right? But well, here is the twist that pretty much no one saw coming in 2025. About a year later, Klarna's CEO actually came out and admitted they cut human agents a bit too deeply, and they had to begin rehiring for premium and complex case roles, which is fascinating because it proves that the boundary between AI and humans, it's a dynamic design choice, not some static line drawn in the sand. AI is absolutely incredible at absorbing those high-volume, highly structured tasks, but when it comes to premium support, that still requires genuine human nuance. Ultimately, you have to optimize for the total customer experience, not just agent deflection. Moving on to Section 2, the 4-category KPI framework, stripping the noise. If we want to avoid that pilot purgatory we talked about earlier and make smart, scalable decisions like Klarna eventually did, we need a complete overhaul of how we measure success. We have got to move past vanity metrics. I mean, we all have those dashboards full of things like app opens, right? And sure, they make us feel good, but those are just floating metrics. They tell you things are happening, but they absolutely do not mean you're actually creating value. A true KPI, on the other hand, is highly actionable and incredibly targeted. Think along the lines of a 30% reduction in cycle time. Now that is something you can actually work with. This specific taxonomy takes your measurements and organizes it into exactly 4 categories: business impact, model performance, operational, and risk and governance. And honestly, if you laid your current dashboard over this framework right now, I guarantee you'd immediately spot your blind spots. Most companies are great at tracking the first 3, but they completely ignore risk and governance. So things like model drift or high-stakes error rates. Having this 4-pillar structure ensures you're balancing your big business goals with absolutely vital guardrails. This right here, this is the difference between an AI tool that looks cool in a demo and one that is actually safe to deploy at scale. And this brings us to a brilliant concept, the rule of subtraction. A truly focused scorecard isn't about adding more numbers. It's built by deliberately deciding what you will absolutely refuse to track. You have to strip away the noise to find the actual signal. Think about your main board right now. If a number on the dashboard can swing 20% up or 20% down and literally nobody in the room changes their behavior, guess what? That's a metric, not a KPI. Take it off the main board immediately. All right, Section 3, Workflows and Agent Memory, Architecting State. So as we transition from those simple, stateless chatbots we're all used to and move towards long-running agentic AI workflows, the absolute biggest performance and economic bottleneck we run into is memory. For an agent to actually be useful, it needs to remember things. Its short-term memory tracks its train of thought. This is what we call the key value or KB cache. But actually, here's the massive problem with that. As a conversation or a task gets longer, this cache grows linearly. So if you're trying to run complex, multi-step workflows, that cache very quickly becomes a totally unmanageable compute bottleneck. Because of this, developers are usually forced into a pretty terrible choice. You either store all this context in high-bandwidth GPU memory, which is incredibly expensive and will just completely drain your budget, or you dump it into general-purpose storage. The problem there? It is way too slow for real-time AI, which absolutely kills your latency. It's a lose-lose situation. Thankfully, though, we're seeing some completely new architectures emerging to solve this exact issue. Take NVIDIA's new G3.5 storage tier, for example. It offers this really groundbreaking approach. What it is an Ethernet-attached flash layer that gives you massive context storage, but without hogging all that expensive GPU resource. By offloading the data management like this, it enables up to 5 times higher tokens per second for those heavy, long context workloads. And when you couple that with software like the Nemo Agent Toolkit, developers can finally manage both short and long-term memory at scale without totally breaking the bank. It's a real game changer. Okay, so what does this actually look like in practice? Imagine an agent acting across time. Step 1, it stores a user's formatting preference in a vector database. That's its long-term memory. Then, maybe days later, Step 2, a totally new task is initiated. For Step 3, the agent plans the task out. Step 4, it actively retrieves that old preference, loads it right into its short-term context, and finally, Step 5, executes the task perfectly. That kind of seamless state management, that is exactly what separates a brittle, basic demo from a genuinely robust digital collaborator. Which leads us to Section 4, Achieving Real AI ROI from Crawl to Run. So how do we actually sequence our deployment to ensure we're capturing real value over, say, a 90-day roadmap? How do we go from crawling to full-on running? Well, when you make that shift from quick, single-system wins to complex agentic AI, you absolutely have to follow the 10-20-70 rule. Remember this. 70% of your effort has to be focused on redesigning the human workflows and managing that change. 20% is the technology stack itself. And honestly, it is wild to think about, but only 10% of the effort is the actual AI algorithm. But if you flip those numbers around, you're going to end up with some absolutely brilliant tech that literally nobody uses. And listen, when you are taking these wins and reporting them to the board, you have to know the difference between capacity recovery, which is basically just saving your employees time, and cost takeout, which is actually lowering your operational run rate. Look, freeing up an hour of an employee's day is completely useless if they just spend that hour scrolling on their phone, right? You have to strategically redeploy that saved capacity to capture any real value. And this is especially crucial when you factor in the absolutely staggering 280-fold drop in inference costs we've seen in just the last 2 years. But as you scale and deploy all of this, always keep the jagged frontier in mind. That's the invisible line where AI goes from being an absolute genius to just completely hallucinating. The research on this is clear. AI is incredibly powerful when it stays within its specific boundaries. We're talking a 25% boost in speed, but if you push it too far into ambiguous, highly complex tasks without a human in the loop, you get catastrophic drops in accuracy, like plummeting by 19 percentage points. You have to actively design your workflows to keep AI safely inside its competence zone. Which brings us to the ultimate question we all need to be asking ourselves. Take a really hard look at your enterprise today. Are you actually redesigning your business to leverage these incredible tools, or are you just buying a very, very expensive subscription to the hype? Because the companies that actually figure out the difference, they aren't just going to win their market, they are going to completely redefine it. Thanks for joining us for this explainer. We'll see you next time.